Oh, cool. G'day. Welcome to another episode of Dawn of the Sea. I'm your host, Caleb, and today we're going to be having a little look into the world of Quentin Tarantino. This dude's films are so influential there's an esque after his name, like Hitchcock-esque, Spielberg-esque, Akira Kurosawa-esque. An official entry in the Oxford English Dictionary, we now have Tarantino-esque. So the thing about Tarantino is that, love him or hate him, actually I mean love his work or hate his work, his approach to filmmaking is so steeped in intertextuality, cultural references and film genre conventions that it requires some kind of ninja to decode it. So instead I thought I'd step back and have a look at his work without the microscope. I assume we've heard all the stories, right? Tarantino watched every single movie in the video store where he worked in his youth, his 20s. We know that he's heavily affected and influenced by film. It's evident in everything that he touches, to the point where if you were to remove everything that he stole from other films, there would probably be little left on the screen. Now, I found a few comprehensive lists of his greatest influences and reduced it to the 9 most common. Starting with Rio Bravo, Bon Depart, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, Django, Lady Snowblood, Foxy Brown, Carrie, The Thing, and City on Fire. So his first film, excluding The Best Friend's Birthday, is Reservoir Dogs, and it put him on the map. Alright, you've got a maverick undercover cop infiltrates a gang of jewel thieves but is wounded when the robbery turns into a massacre. Trapped in their hideout, the gang seek to unmask the traitor in their midst. I was being a little bit cheeky there. That was the blurb from the film City on Fire. Yeah, look, so that was one of his biggest rips, but look, you got Jackie Brown from Foxy Brown, Django Unchained from Django, Kill Bill from Lady Snowblood. Rio Bravo and The Good, the Bad and the Ugly set the stage and themes for The Hateful Eight. Tarantino's production company, A Band Apart, is clearly a reference to the French film Bon Depart. Look, and even actors with similar facial features make appearances in his movies. So Tarantino is quoted saying, "Great artists steal, they don't do homages." And I gotta say, it rings of something Picasso was often quoted saying, "Good artists copy, great artists steal." Yeah, but you know what I think Picasso forgot to stipulate is that great artists steal and no one cares. And this is true in Tarantino's case. And I think the underlining point of this video is that, love it or hate it, he is the exception to the rule. In 1992, he went to Cannes with Reservoir Dogs, a nobody first-time director, and returned a hero. He landed a studio that funded his movies and gave him creative control. So what Quentin wanted, he got. And he created some of the most iconic and impactful moments in modern cinema history. One of the things that he's very good at is taking music and songs and reimagining them, or giving new life to old music and creating something synonymous in popular culture. He revived the careers of actors and helped launch a few as well. John Travolta had hit a bit of a slump before Tarantino put a gun in his hand and gave him the lead in Pulp Fiction. Christopher Waltz had worked in television and telefilms in Germany since the 70s, but he was a relative unknown until Inglourious Basterds. Now he's worked with Muppets, Bond, Tarzan, Musketeers, Hornets, Horrible Bosses, Epic, and look, people know his name now. Pam Grier had averaged 2.5 gigs a year from 1970 to 1997. That's TV episodes, telemovies, voiceover work, but then after Jackie Brown, 6 jobs a year. So there's a clear spike thanks to Tarantino, unless Fakin' the Funk and Strip Search is the real reason behind her comeback. Michael Fassbender had small parts in big things like Band of Brothers and 300, but after Inglourious Basterds, he landed the X-Men franchise, the Alien franchise, and became a household name. Tim Roth got his break working with Tarantino in Reservoir Dogs, after doing nearly all telemovies and TV shows. Of course, not all actors were so lucky to work with him. Okay, so he's got this Woody Allen-esque zealous attention to dialogue in films where it has very little relationship to the plot. Movies where not that much happens and where the arc of the story transpires internally within the characters. This trend was revived in the 90s, but blockbusters to this day seldom use it. Yet, Tarantino fully embraces this use of downtime for his characters, where Hitman can talk about Burger King in France or foot massages. 28 years on, and he still entrenches his films with this trend and is very successful, where most others are not. And for this reason, Tarantino is the exception to the rule, with more exceptions to come. Right, so getting back to stealing other artists' work. While doing this research, I learnt what pastiche is. A cinematic device that honors the work of another filmmaker through imitation of scenes or other iconic elements. Okay, so learning this things kind of become clearer. Look, you can judge him on how heavily he leans on this device, but on the flip side, he is bringing back to the new generations cinema gold from the past that is lost to the masses. Standards, sensibilities, and tastes have changed, and unless you consider yourself somebody that studies film as an art form, expecting people to watch dated content while they're drowning in streaming services is going to be a tall order. For example, how many of those 9 greatest influences of Tarantino have you seen? I'm at 4. And don't ask me to give you the rundown of the plots. Look, most art is a copy from another. Like, there's only 7 different stories that you can actually tell, for starters, and all artists are influenced by others and they make tributes to them. And if somebody's going to be reviving treasured works, you don't want them betraying everything that the work originally stood for. So yeah, no one can come close to Tarantino with his use of unapologetic blatant theft. I mean pastiche. The way he does it, it doesn't come off forced or contrived, or look, it's just simply missed due to its obscurity. And when it does stand out, it pays tribute in such a way that rewards the nostalgia. And whatever he's taken is now on the canvas of an R-rated film. No one can do it like him, making him an exception to this rule too. He's got an exceedingly over-understanding of the genre, with the hundreds or thousands of references he makes in his films. They are effortlessly stitched in. They enhance the final product and serve a greater purpose, not just a parody or plagiarism of a famous scene. So if we're talking about Tarantino, we have to address the stampeding herd of racist elephants in the room. Unlike his sleight of hand technique in the use of pastiche, his use of the N-word sticks out like a sore thumb. But something so powerful being used so indiscriminately, incessantly, with disregard and such entitlement, it was bound to become a point of contention. He uses a variety of reasons, excuses, explanations, and refusals in his defense of his use of the N-word, even crediting Django for being slightly less racist than the time really was. But look, this is something that never really sat right with me.
And the people who've said, who've complained about my use of that have been social critics. And I have to say, there's not one iota of social criticism that has ever been leveled my way that has changed one word of any other script I've written or any scenario I've ever done.
I've read that Tarantino's film work is seen as referential cultural production in dialogue with historic and concurrent racial anxieties in American society.
I wanted to take a 21st century audience and stick them in the middle of Mississippi in the antebellum South and have them see this is America. This was America then. You have to see it that way.
So I would argue that this is not the platform for social commentary if you are not willing to accept social criticism. But now we're in the realm of what social criticism to listen to. One side is telling him to lay off the use of the N-word, while others are patting him on the back for his realistic representation of what slavery looked like in the USA and happy to offend the limitations of a white racial imaginary. I get that he's a writer and an artist, but this is not art that he's doing in isolation. His productions now carry weight and stamp into our popular lore. His stuff is controversial, it's provocative, divisive, it's edgy and brilliant, exploitative, he's self-indulgent and disrespectful. Django is the movie that best gives weight to these adjectives. Okay, now aside from the representations of black masculinity, the graphic violence and the language, the issues that offended many was the combination of 19th century slavery and the postmodern style of the white filmmaker Tarantino. There's also carried with the historic white savior arrogance to revise black cultural history through the cultural production of a film. Now, Tarantino isn't black, regardless of how much he may wish it. He's never felt the true sting of the N-word, or ever really be able to truly understand the history of hate behind it. He's free from the intergenerational trauma associated with slavery, with the Jim Crow laws, and he is reviving the white director's 70s blaxploitation genre for his benefit and profit. But there's still strong support for the realness of his portrayal of American slavery. There's a satisfaction felt when the truth is revealed, when people are being held to account, their origins unveiled. Now, this dude stands by his word and his scripts, and he puts his beliefs front and center. Maybe he actually does believe he is an honorary black man, but an intentional and malicious racist? I can't see it. But in the face of everything that we know and have seen, there's got to be another reason outside of his excuses for his insistence of the use of that word. There's an interview he made in 1994 saying, "The minute any word has that much power, as far as I'm concerned, everyone on the planet should scream it. No word deserves that much power. I'm not afraid of it." We know that his lens of the world has been shaped by 70s popular culture, so I figured I'd have a little dig through that decade, looking at the people on the fringe of society finding recognition, and I stumbled over this.
I've passed with 7 niggers, 6 Vicks, 5 Nicks, 4 cocks, 3 guineas, and 1 wop. You almost punched me out, didn't you? Well, I'm just trying to make a point, and that is that it's the suppression of the word that gives it the power, the violence, the viciousness. Dig, if President Kennedy would just go on television and say, I'd like to introduce you to all the niggers in my cabinet, and if he just say nigger, 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 every nigger he saw, boogie, 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 nigger, 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 till nigger didn't mean anything anymore, then you'd never be able to make some 6-year-old black kid cry because somebody called him a nigger in school.
Right, and now it all becomes clear. Over the years, he used honesty as a reason, authenticity as a reason. He blamed it on the characters and the time period. But Django, with the N-word appearing on average every 90 seconds from start to finish, that movie won an Oscar and made nearly $500 million. So Tarantino was right in one sense. Overuse of the N-word has diminished its power, not in society, but in Tarantino movies. Yeah, look, sure, there's some backlash, but he is, and excuse the cliche, one of a kind. So much so that his name is an adjective. He does something that few people dare do, and look, maybe that's a good thing. So yeah, he got his wish, and a white man successfully claimed that word back. So again, he is an exception to the rule. Jesus. Except, nah, you know, maybe it's time he opened up to listening to those that don't reinforce his confirmation bias. For example, after returning from Africa, Richard Pryor is captured saying, I regretted ever having uttered that word on a stage or off it. It was a wretched word, its connotations weren't funny, even when people laughed. To this day, I wish I'd never said that word. I felt its lameness, it was misunderstood by the people. They didn't get what I was talking about, neither did I, so I vowed to never say it again. Pryor actually believed the same thing that Lenny Bruce did, at around the same time as well, but look, even he abandoned that philosophy. So, in conclusion, for all the Tarantino haters, if you think the world cannot survive another 28 years of his films, take some refuge in the fact that his next one will be his last. Tarantino has often said that he would stop at 10 films. He also said that he would stop when he turns 60. And at 56, with 9 films under his belt, the two look like they're going to converge quite nicely. Seeing how clearly his visions have unfolded over the last 28 years, I would have no doubt that he will stick to his word. But there's something satisfying about laying all the blame on one obvious target, and it's easy for the buck to stop with him. Right, but however, he's just so evidently a product of film, so some of the blame must go to them, right? So I propose that should he have not seen the film Lenny, or in fact any single one film from that aforementioned list, we would have a very different director today. And look, there's every single chance that we will never hear that word uttered in a Tarantino movie ever again. But if I know Tarantino's work, I wouldn't be surprised if he simply just named his last movie Nig. By the way, feet. Shit, yeah, I'm done. Let's just try and get on with our lives, eh? My name's Caleb, this has been Door Number C, and join me next time for another episode about stuff. Bye now. Did I mention how hot it is in this room? Fucking look. I'm sitting here doing nothing, and I'm gonna have to wring this shirt out when I'm done. That's gross. You're gross, Caleb. Stop being gross. Right.